Hello everyone and welcome to my The Bold Fans channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The Bold and the Beautiful BNB spoilers for Friday, August 7th show that Lee Finnegan, Naomi Matsuda, will attempt to perform a nice deed for John Finn Finnegan, Tanner Novlin, but she will make a mistake that will cause Sheila Carter, Kimberlyn Brown problems. 4 openers on Friday's episode. Steffi will arrive in Monaco and the festivities will begin. Finn will call Steffi Forrester Finnegan, Jacqueline McInnes Wood, and apologize for having to delay his own journey owing to a patient's extensive surgery. However, Finn assures Steffi that once he finishes at the hospital, he will board the next commercial flight out. Finn will be juggling a lot before his trip, so Lee will offer to book Finn's flight for him, taking one thing off his plate. Finn will eagerly accept the offer, so Lee will go online and book Finn's trip to Monaco. It won't be long until Sheila sees the information on the screen because Lee will reportedly be called away and leave it up. Naturally, Sheila will arrange a flight to Monaco as well. Sheila intends to disrupt Steffi and Finn's escape, so havoc will undoubtedly ensue in Monaco soon. According to BNB spoilers, Finn will experience some unexpected turbulence, which may include literal turbulence on the plane or a Sheila stunner if he eventually discovers what she is up to. Meanwhile, Deacon Sharp, Sean Cannon, will spend some alone time with Taylor Hayes, Rebecca Budig in Los Angeles, where he plans to take their relationship to the next level. Will Deacon finally advise that they get a new house together? Could Deacon be planning a marriage proposal soon? Whatever the situation, Deacon will be on cloud 9 about his love with Taylor, and will want to show her how much she means to him. According to the Bold and the Beautiful spoilers, Taylor and Deacon's relationship will get stronger, so stay tuned for more information on where their love story will go next. The afternoon sun seeped through the half-closed shutters in Finn's private office at the hospital, casting long stripes across the polished desk and the open laptop sitting in the center of it. The screen still lit faintly, with a half-completed email minimized at the bottom and the browser tab above it locked on a confirmation page with aircraft numbers, departure schedules, and a destination that simply read, Monaco. Lee Finnegan stood in the doorway for longer than she intended. She had merely come by to deliver the updated patient files Finn had requested before he left for the day. He had been more preoccupied than usual lately, caught between his pledge to Steffi and the gentle, constant pull of the woman who had given him life. Lee had listened to him that morning in her own office, her hands folded securely in her lap, as he admitted how difficult it was to entirely close the door on Sheila. She had recommended caution. She had reminded him that Steffi had set boundaries for a reason. And then, because she loved him, she said something she quickly regretted. If he truly needed room to reflect, a few days away with his wife may help. She didn't expect him to book the tickets so quickly. Lee walked in, placed the files on the edge of the desk, and reached to close the laptop. Her fingertips brushed the trackpad. The screen brightened. The itinerary was displayed in strong black lettering. Bound flight. The return flight was 3 days later. Hotel confirmation. Private transfer from the airport. Everything was there, spread out like an invitation she hadn't intended to extend. He paused. A little, mother impulse begged her to close the tab, protecting the fragile serenity Steffi had worked so hard to establish. Another impulse, quieter and more complicated, informed her that Finn deserved whatever happiness he could find, even if it meant a brief escape from the storm that always seemed to follow Sheila. Lee closed the laptop without logging out. She assured herself everything was okay. The office was private. Finn exited and the door automatically locked. Nobody else would see it. She was wrong. Sheila Carter strolled through the hospital corridors with the confidence of someone who had once belonged there. She still knew which employees would look the other way and which elevators would avoid the most congested floors. She'd come seeking for Finn. She needed 5 minutes. It was 5. Long enough to convince him she understood Steffi's rules and would follow them if he looked her in the eyes and said he still felt she could change. Her divorce with Deacon had left her adrift. Her new flat felt too quiet. Hayes' absence from laughter pained in places she refused to name. Finn's office door remained slightly ajar. This was odd. She pushed it open with 2 fingers and went inside. The room had a slight scent of the fragrance he usually wore and the coffee he never finished. Her gaze landed on the closed laptop. A little green light flashed at the hinge. Still powered on. Sheila's heart pounded once, forcefully. She knew she should leave. She was aware of the risks. But the same hunger that had drove her through years of poor decisions now dictated her actions. She lifted the lid. The screen awakened. The itinerary shone like a secret ready to be revealed. Monaco. She read each line twice. Departure time. Seat numbers. Hotel name. The dates coincided well with a trip Steffi had mentioned casually during one of their colder confrontations. Something about needing air, space, and a place where the past could not follow. Sheila's mouth formed a slow, frightening smile. Distances were relative, or can be shared. She pulled out her phone and snapped the screen. 2 clear shots. Then she closed the laptop just as she had found it, returned to the hallway, and walked away without glancing over her shoulder. Lee returned 1 hour later. She had forgotten her reading glasses on Finn's desk and would need them for the evening rounds. The office seems unperturbed. The laptop sat closed. The files remained where she left them. She recovered the glasses, locked the door behind her, and had no idea that the knowledge she had left exposed had already changed everything. That night, Sheila booked her own trip. Same airline. Later flight. A different hotel, 2 blocks away from the one indicated on Finn's confirmation. She packed simply, bringing only dark clothes, a pair of comfy shoes, and the small bottle of medication she always kept on hand for emergencies. She didn't tell anyone. Not Deacon. Not Taylor. Not even the empty flat, which still carried the faint odor of the life she had attempted and failed to rebuild. The next morning, Finn kissed Steffi goodbye at the airport and promised to meet her in Monaco by nightfall. He had one last shift to complete and one last set of charts to sign. He failed to notice the woman in the terminal's far corner, who watched him bored with eyes that had never learnt to look away. Lee spent the day in a quiet panic that she couldn't describe. Something felt odd. Finn appeared lighter when he departed, as if the weight of the Sheila question had been removed. Steffi had called once from the plane, her voice filled with eagerness. Everything seemed nice. However, Lee kept returning to the recollection of the open laptop, the shining screen, and the decision not to delete the page. She convinced herself she was doing foolishly. Coincidence was not a scheme. Closed office remained a closed office. By the time Sheila's plane landed in Nice, the sun had begun its leisurely drop over the Mediterranean. She rented a car under someone else's identity and drove the winding coastal route to Monte Carlo with the windows down. The air smelled like salt and expensive perfume. The metropolis shone ahead of her, like a promise she meant to keep. Finn arrived first. He found Steffi waiting in the lobby of their hotel, already dressed in a soft white outfit that made her appear younger than the conflicts she had fought. They kissed like folks who had been through too much to take everyday things for granted. Dinner was quiet. The conversation steered clear of Los Angeles and the woman who continued to haunt both of them. Later on the balcony, Steffi put her head on Finn's shoulder, whispering that perhaps this was the start of something great. He grabbed her tightly and expressed his hope. Neither of them noticed the guy standing across the street, partially obscured by the shadow of a cafe awning. Sheila waited until the balcony lights went off. Then she strolled back to her hotel, opened the small notebook she carried with her every place, and started writing. Plans. Contingencies. The exact words she'd say when the time came. She hadn't traveled this far to stay unseen. She had come to be seen. By Finn, Steffi, and the family who had spent years attempting to erase her. If it meant risking everything again, she was game. Back in Los Angeles, Lee sat alone in her living room far past midnight, staring at the dark television screen. The discomfort would not leave her. She relived the afternoon in Finn's office, frame by frame. The files. The trackpad. Choosing not to log him out. Easy mistake. An everyday oversight. What any mother would do if she wanted her son to have some peace. She had no idea that peace was already breaking down 3,000 miles away, or that the lady who had nearly destroyed them all now had the exact map of their temporary escape in the pocket of her coat. The morning in Monaco arrived soft and golden. Finn and Steffi walked hand in hand along the bay, talking about the children, the future, and the chance that some distances could be healed. Sheila carefully removed her sunglasses and placed her hair under a wide-brimmed hat. She waited for the proper moment. When Steffi's guard was down, Finn's attention wandered, and the past could creep between them like a shadow that refused to leave behind. Lee's phone rang shortly after morning Los Angeles time. It was Finn. His voice was tense. "Mom," he stated. Lee closed her eyes and said, "She's here." The laptop. The open screen. She had laid the files down without thinking. One minor error. One unlocked door in a life filled with locked doors. And suddenly the woman they had all worked so hard to keep at a safe distance stood on the same brightly lit street as her son and the wife who had never stopped fearing her. Sheila Carter grinned as she walked into the light. Lee Finnegan had always taken great pride in her precision. As a doctor, details were critical. The exact dosage, the precise timing of an operation, and the meticulous monitoring of all variables that may swing a patient's fate one way or another. That same rigorous mentality regulated her personal life, particularly with regard to her son Finn. She had reared him, sheltered him, and fought multiple times to keep the darker forces that surrounded his life at bay. Sheila Carter remained the darkest of those forces, a woman whose presence Lee continued to perceive as a looming menace no matter how many times Finn insisted that boundaries were sufficient. This Friday, Lee came to the hospital earlier than usual. Finn had left a note the night before, stating that he would swing by his workplace before leaving to the airport. Steffi was already in Monaco, and Finn intended to join her for what they both believed would be a fresh start, a chance to put distance between themselves and the current round of Sheila's incessant requests. Lee had encouraged the trip. She believed that distance was the healthiest prescription. When she entered Finn's office, she found it empty. Finn had left the door unlocked, as he sometimes did when he planned to return in minutes. A half-finished cup of coffee rested on the desk. His laptop remained open with the screen still blazing. Lee laid her luggage down and glanced at the display out of habit, just like a mother would before sending her child off on a journey. The flight confirmation included the departure time, gate confirmation number, and hotel reservation in Monte Carlo. Finn had certainly pulled it up one last time before heading out, possibly to confirm the specifics with Steffi over the phone. Lee smiled faintly at the result of his meticulous planning. She closed the laptop with a quiet click, hoping to leave everything as she found it. Then her phone rang. A nurse from the level below requested an instant consultation on a complex post-operative case. Lee responded, already going toward the door, her thoughts switching to clinical mode. In her rush, she overlooked a little detail that would later haunt her. She had closed the laptop but not locked the office door behind her. She also left her own hospital badge on the edge of Finn's desk, where she had placed it while conversing. Sheila arrived 20 minutes later. She had returned to look for Finn, despite his obvious warning that she stopped showing up unannounced. The office door remained slightly ajar. Sheila pulled it open with the cautious assurance of someone who has long given up waiting for invites. The room smelled strongly like coffee and antiseptic. Finn was nowhere in sight, but the open laptop on the desk drew her attention right away. She moved closer, her gaze searching the screen, which Lee had closed but not completely shut down. The sleep mode had not yet activated. A light tap on the touchpad brought the display back to life, presenting the precise itinerary Lee had looked at just minutes before. Sheila's look changed from mild curiosity to harsher. She read each paragraph twice, memorizing the departure time, airline, and connection information. Her lips twisted into a faint, contented smile. She dug inside her bag for her phone and photographed the screen, taking care not to disrupt anything else. She then observed Lee's badge laying on the desk. That fact confirmed her suspicions. Lee had been here recently. The thought provided her a personal sense of accomplishment. Even Finn's protective adoptive mother couldn't keep all doors sealed against her. Sheila exited the office as quietly as she had come, the revelation already altering her plans for the day. The office appeared untouched when Lee returned from the consultation. She collected her badge, properly secured the door this time, and continued her rounds, unaware that the little moment of distraction had provided Sheila with all she required. Later the afternoon, Finn arrived at the airport, already behind schedule. Weather systems across the Atlantic began to emerge earlier than expected. He checked in, went through security, and boarded with the unpleasant sense that the day was already slipping away. Turbulence struck the jet shortly after departure, prompting the captain to indicate a potential delay or diversion. Finn looked out the window at the rising clouds and imagined Steffi waiting in Monaco, eager and anticipating him. He wrote her a note guaranteeing that he would still make it, even if the timeline was extended. Sheila moved with the focused energy of someone who has waited far too long for a chance. She booked the next available trip, which would get her in Monaco just hours after Finn's expected arrival. She packed light, opting for outfits that would mix nicely with the Riviera's refined clientele. Before departing, she went by Il Giardino long enough to leave a vague message for Deacon, indicating that she would be gone for a few days. She provided no details. Details had a tendency to become hurdles. Lee realized the error only after Finn called from the air to warn the flight was in bad weather. Something about his tone made her apprehensive. She returned to his office that evening and found the laptop still where she had left it, but the sleep settings indicated recent activity after her departure. A sense of dread settled over her. She reviewed the hospital security logs and discovered that the office door had been opened after she left but before Finn returned. The alarm had not been triggered since the door had never been locked. Lee sat at his desk for a long time, repeating the sequence. Phone call. The hurried exit. The badge has been left behind. The laptop is left unprotected. Each tiny oversight contributed to a larger failure. She had always believed that caution was the only effective defense against Sheila. Today, that vigilance had lapsed for less than half an hour, with the consequences already in action. She tried phoning Finn again, but the turbulence hampered communication. She left a carefully written note urging him to contact her as soon as he landed, but did not explain why. She couldn't risk startling him in the middle of the flight. Instead, she drove herself to the airport, hoping against all odds that Sheila hadn't already acted on the knowledge. Security refused to give passenger information, and the next flight to Europe had already departed. Lee stood at the terminal, watching planes take off into the darker sky, and felt the weight of her own folly rest heavily on her shoulders. Steffi waited near the modest chapel where she and Finn had previously rejoined under very different circumstances. The Mediterranean light was gentle, and the air smelled of salt and citrus. She checked her phone repeatedly, reading Finn's previous message about the turbulence and reminding herself that delays were normal. She had come here for a temporary respite from the continual stress of family disagreements, particularly those centered on Sheila. The thought that her mother-in-law would follow them had crossed her mind several times, but she dismissed it as paranoid. Sheila was persistent but not omniscient. After his jet landed under hazardous conditions, Lee returned to Los Angeles and finally contacted Finn. She told him the truth without embellishment. She had left his office unsecured, with the flight information exposed. Sheila almost probably saw them. Finn remained silent on the other end of the line for several long seconds. When he talked, his voice contained the controlled frustration of a man who had spent years attempting to reconcile his commitment to the mother who raised him with the reality of the woman who gave birth to him. "I'll handle it," he said finally. "Stay there. Do not come to Monaco," Lee wanted to argue. She wanted to take the following plane herself and stand between Sheila and the impending showdown. Instead, she followed his request and went home, rehearsing the day's blunders until sleep proved impossible. She kept noticing the open laptop, the badge on the desk, and the unlocked door. Small things. Ordinary things. The kinds of mistakes that diligent people make when they are briefly distracted. However, those minor details had now landed Finn and Steffi in the same city as Sheila, with no warning and no barrier. Sheila's flight was smoother. She landed in Monaco under a brilliant twilight sky, with the city lights glinting on the water. She checked into a modest hotel far enough away from the main tourist corridors to avoid detection, then changed into a basic clothing that would allow her to pass through the nighttime crowds without drawing attention. She had no immediate plans beyond locating Finn. She expected the rest to come naturally. It always has.